Welcome to the Deal by Me podcast, where we ask guests to tell us your story. Hello there, this is Dr. James W. Smith, your host. We seek to transform lives by encouraging and inspiring. Someone encouraged and inspired this host, a former lawyer, gambler, inmate, and his life was transformed. The same could happen to you. So when you listen to any of the Deal by Me podcasts, please support this podcast with a donation or a monthly recurring amount for as little as $3. If you're viewing any of the podcasts on YouTube, please subscribe. To supporters of this podcast, we say thank you. Check out my encouraging, inspiring, and transforming books. I'm available for speaking engagements, in-person and virtual seminars. So please contact me through my website, www.dealbyme.com. I have with me Kim Rahir, whose journey inspired her to leave her career in journalism and become a health coach for middle-aged women with a big focus on reactivating and rebuilding muscle. Today, she helps women tap into an abundant source of vitality. She says it works by reactivating and maintaining muscle and eating to nourish and flourish. What an awesome guest we have with us. And so I want to just ask Kim, again, welcome to the podcast. And would you share a little bit about yourself and where you've been interviewed from?
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to get into a conversation with you, and talk about transformations and things. That's so exciting. So I'm Kim, as you said. I'm 60 years old. I've lived in Madrid, Spain, for 10 years now, and that's where I'm talking to you from. Before that, I used to move around a lot because my husband and I were journalists, and we moved every 4 years. We have mostly been to places in Europe, but started our life together in Dubai. And we also had 3 kids in the process that we dragged around the world, and life turned out just fine.
Hmm. Well, you seem very interesting. I have to admit that I have read your profile. Exciting, uh, amazing. It's intriguing to see what you have done and where you have come from. And I do note that you was diagnosed with MS about 10 years ago. So as we move into this conversation, I want to just ask you uh, what was going through your mind when you were first diagnosed with MS. Obviously, when you get this diagnosed, and I can sense it because had prostate cancer, and when they told me that that's what I went through. It was kind of a little different. It wasn't normal. So, please, could you talk to us a little bit about your feeling?
Yeah. I think the very first reaction, and I think it was fear,
Mm-hmm.
uncertainty, because it's a disease where you have no idea where you're going. It could be quite okay,
Mm-hmm.
could be totally debilitating. So I think fear was uh, a big first reaction, and then there's also some disappointment actually, because
Mm-hmm.
even though we might not be planning our lives like, after 2 years I'm going to do this, and then I want to do this, and I want to, like ticking boxes. I know some people do. I hadn't done that. I was not like sort of really full of expectations, but still, I had an idea, an image of what my life was going to be like, or what I wanted it to be like. And now somebody told me, whatever you have imagined for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's not going to be like that. Definitely not. It's going to be different. different in which way, I didn't know yet. So
Mhm.
um, disappointment, definitely. And then there's a bit of incomprehension also, because an autoimmune disease is where, your body
Mm,
attacks its own tissues.
mm,
It's a bit like a betrayal, and you think, why is this happening?
mhm,
You can always think of stuff where you're responsible. You've smoked all your life and you get
mhm,
lung
mhm,
cancer, but this is something. It's just seems so random. So there
mhm.
was a bit of a sense of betrayal also.
I can sense that. I feel you as you talk about it. You know, one thing that I was intrigued with you about is how you have basically taken it. And what I mean by taking it, I mean how you've excelled. You have, obviously, winning European Masters weightlifting championship. You know, all of this is very interesting. So, could you talk about uh, how did you go from a wheelchair to becoming a European Masters weightlifting champion?
Yeah, it's crazy because for me this was always just my path, and it's only a short while ago that I realized how far I've come. And I think this is something we don't do often enough. We always measure looking forwards where we want to be. And sometimes we have to just stop to measure backwards and see how far we've come. So when I was diagnosed, I just asked the doctor if I could exercise, and he reluctantly said yes. And I had this, I just wanted to become physically strong. Maybe
Mhm,
because of this feeling that my body was betraying me.
mhm,
I wanted to build physical strength. So I had been a gym goer before, but just like most people, trying to maybe change the way my body looked or stay fit or whatever you call it. But after that diagnosis, I still have, my left hand has lost a lot of its sensitivity, but otherwise I didn't have um, big damage. So I could move, and I was very grateful I could. And I just thought, I want to make myself like
mm,
physically strong to regain a sense of control and power. So I went to the gym and I started lifting heavy. And it was not totally new at the time, like, it was like 2013, 14 for
mm,
women to lift heavy. But until this day, it's still not totally, habitual or
mm,
normal.
mm,
Um, but I got stronger really quickly. And what I noticed too is that my mental health improved incredibly. I mean, you can see me now how I'm smiling from ear to ear, because it's just so amazing when you
mm,
start training for strength, how confident, how optimistic, and just how fulfilled you can become with just this simple activity. And I think this allowed me, first of all, to sort of recover whatever I could physically. And I think that the mental health aspect and helped me really um, to actually overcome this disease. And I had to
mm.
treat myself for a few years, but for 6 years now already, I've been without treatment, and I'm doing fine. I'm not
Wow.
saying you can cure MS with what I did,
Mhm,
but it
mhm.
sure helped me to get better.
Wow. I'm excited. You're very encouraging. Your story is so inspiring, and it will help a lot of people. I'm reminded of just a member of my former church who is suffering with the same thing, MS. And she's been dealing with it, I think last time I talked with her, she told me about 20 years. But she is now completely, lost her mobility. But to see where you are here, and winning the European Masters weightlifting championship and all of that, it's just so exciting. It's very encouraging and inspiring, and I really appreciate you sharing it. You talked some about, you know how you felt, obviously your mental health at the time. And so tell us a little bit about how did you take care of your mental health during
Yeah.
this time?
It it it's now to me it seems obvious what I did. At the time, I was not super aware what was going on, but actually, because looking at the big picture, looking at my future was so scary.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea what kind of outcome I was going to have. I just focused on the present day.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also spent a lot of time in hospitals, so I had 3 kids, so I just wanted to spend as much time with them as I could. And I really turned my focus to the present, to what can I do today? If I look at the future, I'm going to be scared out of my wits because I'm just not, I have no idea what's coming. But today, I can walk, I can move, I can do things. And I'm just going to make the most of that because if I do that now, that's, that's in the books. That's nobody can take that away from me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I somehow it was a natural reaction, probably to avoid the fear of looking ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I've also started to meditate, practice mindfulness, and things like that. And I
Okay.
realize now that actually focusing on what we can do now is always um, the best way to proceed. It will
Okay.
always help us feel empowered because
Mm.
there's always something that we can do now, no
Right.
matter how small.
Mm.
Um, and we don't waste energy on thinking about situations that don't exist because tomorrow doesn't exist.
I love that. I love it. I love what you're saying. I'm struck by something that I read in your profile, and you said this. You said my story made me change my career from journalism to coaching, and I'm on an empowering muscle mission to help women claim their place and their happiness in midlife. That was amazing. How things that happen to you can make you take a totally different path. I've gone through that myself, so I know exactly where you are. Talk about that a little bit for us.
Yes. Um, so I think it's now 6.5 years ago. Um, my Spanish neurologist said I could stop my treatment because I was doing so well. I had no relapses. Um, and I was so grateful. I felt like I was given a second shot at
Mm-hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I also felt that maybe with this approach of mine of just focusing on muscular strength, maybe I was onto something.
Mm-hmm.
Not for to heal all kinds of diseases. We have, we need doctors for that. But my own quality of life had improved so much that I really felt this desire to share this,
Mm-hmm.
and to help women understand um, how simple actually this intervention is and how many knock-on effects it can have. And really feel this is a mission because, uh, I sort of stand as testament that this can really change your life. And I also know that there's still a lot of work to do to convince women that physical strength is actually something they can aspire to because we're not raised
Mm-hmm.
like this. We're
Mm-hmm.
raised to be pretty and
Right.
elegant and tiny maybe. uh, when we're very lucky, our parents raise us to become educated. um, but nobody talks about physical strength really to
Mm.
women.
Okay.
And you can really tell,
Mm.
when I work with my clients and they start moving and they start training their muscles, they
Mm-hmm.
just feel totally different in a very short time.
Wow. Wow. Let me ask you this question because I think it's really speak to what you are dealing with. Why is building muscle so crucial for women's health in midlife. And I noticed the word midlife that's kind of stuck out to me. Could you share that, uh, talk about it a little bit?
Absolutely. So I don't even know where to start. If you have to stop, you have to stop me if I go on a rant.
Okay.
So I think from an evolutionary perspective, our bodies are optimized to be physically active and to make physical efforts every day. That's when we stay the healthiest, is actually when we're pushing things, pulling things, lifting things, picking things up from overhead and getting them down. And as younger women, we carry around our kids and we carry around groceries. We're still active. I think midlife is like a fork in the road, and you really have to make a deliberate decision to stay active and to keep moving and to keep using your body and making this physical effort every day, because women specifically lose bone and muscle mass from 35 years onwards, which can be extremely debilitating. And muscle and strength are actually predictors of longevity. And bone fractures and falls are a big cause of mortality. So it's really about our life,
Okay.
about staying alive, and then it's about quality of life.
Hmm.
Because when you are muscular, when you're strong enough, you can
Mhm.
keep doing all kinds of activities. You can roll on the floor with your grandchildren,
Okay.
because you can get down and back up off the floor. Your metabolic health will improve, your bone health anyway, your joint health. So it's your health, and that will sort of create a better quality of life. And because women are so prone to losing muscle and bone mass, I think they particularly need to focus on doing that. And it will really, I love the knock-on effects, because it's so simple. You just focus on one thing, and everything or nearly everything else will kind of fall into place.
I got you. I hear you. You know, as I said to you earlier, this podcast is about encouraging, inspiring, transforming. I pastor for about over 32 years, same church. And when I retired, I wanted to do something that I thought would be encouraging, inspiring, and hopefully transforming as a continuation of my ministry. And I've had some great guests on, and you are one of those persons who I'm grateful to have today, because you share that zest that I'm talking about, encouraging, inspiring. So if there is somebody who's listening to this podcast who is going through some situation, and there may be somebody who's dealing with what you have dealt with, or what you are dealing with, or there may be somebody who's is dealing with some other situation, some other circumstance in their life. What is it that you would say to them? Because you really show what can happen. What is it you would say to them that would be encouraging, that would be inspiring and transforming, hopefully?
Yeah. The first thing I want to say is, I know in my bones and in my fibers that it's never too late for
Mm,
you. And I
mm,
think so many people feel it's too late,
mhm,
because they feel like they're in such a bad place. Maybe they're hurting, they're tired, um, they're sort of hopeless. And I think it is really never too late, and you can sort of dig into that. If you ask yourself, what can I do right now? Just as I did at the time, forget about tomorrow, forget about the big picture, forget about, oh my God, where am I going to be in 10 years?
Mm,
Look at today. Look at today, and there is always something that you can do, no matter
mm,
how small. And I
I
think
love
that's
it.
also something that I really want to share. There is nothing that's too small if it's the right action or the right gesture or even the right thought.
Mm,
It can't be too small. And it could be that you go and have a glass of water, or that you maybe go for a walk, or that you call a loved one. Something small that you can do today that will give you the reassurance that you are still doing things, that you're still doing the right things for you
mm,
and the
mhm,
people around you, and that it's not too late. And that can create
mm,
momentum, because you get positive feedback, you feel better about yourself, and then you do a little bit more maybe the next day.
mm. I love it. I love it. You, you're amazing. You are truly
Thank you.
amazing. I just love your story. It's been empowering, very inspiring, just great, great. Listeners, please don't go any place. Have a few more questions that I want to ask Kim. But first, I want to allow Kim to share with you how you may be able to get more information about her, what she's doing, if she has a book or anything of that nature that she can share with you today. Kim, please do that for us.
Yeah. So what I do is I help women over 40 to really rediscover their vitality and their zest, as you call it. And we do that by strength training, which doesn't mean you have to go to a gym. You start at home, 15 minutes with something that is right for you. So we look at how you move, how you feel, and then I
Mm-hmm.
find the right movement for you. And that's how you can actually feel much better in a very short time if you just start moving. And you can find out more about how I do that and how that works if you go to my website, which is kimrahir.com. Um, on there, you can also find an assessment. It's a health and strength assessment, so you can get a nice picture about where you are at right now, because
Mm-hmm.
everybody starts at a different place. What your life looks like and how you're actually doing and feeling in your life right now. And from that free assessment, I give you a few hints and tips, steps
Okay.
that you can take
Okay.
today.
Okay. That's great. Thank you so very much for sharing that. And listeners, this is a very empowering interview. So I'm trusting that you're really taking it all in. Kim, what would you tell women who think it's too late for them to start getting strong? There are a lot of folk who feel that way, and also talked about what's the best way to start strength training in midlife. So if you kind of talk about both of those at the same time,
Yeah,
it would be helpful.
absolutely. So when I say it's never too late, it's not just sort of my inspiring or sort of hopeful, optimistic message. There's solid
Mm-hmm.
research to that. Um, and I think there's a study, I'm not sure they could do this nowadays, but I think there's a study from the 70s where they went into a nursing home
Mm-hmm.
and they helped old people get stronger. They had some strength training with them. And people in their 90s became stronger and grew muscle. So
Mm-hmm.
the body does the same over and over. It's never too late.
Mm-hmm.
What you need to look at, and that's exactly what we do in my program, is know where you are at exactly and start with something that's right for you. Because many women, they want to get in shape, then they Google exercises and they find great programs, but they are just not made for our age group. Um, or your current state of fitness. You want someone to look at you and give you exercises that you can actually do safely, um, and uh, you can start really at home with body weight exercises. You don't have to go to a gym. I know that's such a big obstacle for so many women. And I understand you just don't feel you're in the right place. You feel everybody's staring at you. You don't know what to do with the equipment. And you can actually start at home.
Hmm.
I got just an example, one of my favorite exercises, a wall push-up, where you
Mhm.
start building, like, your brain learns the movement, and your joints and your bones and your muscles also
Mhm.
become accustomed to the movement without you totally overdoing it or hurting yourself or becoming discouraged.
Okay.
And this is how you can start, with a easier version of certain body weight exercises, and then get stronger from there.
Thank you. Do you talk about what individuals should be eating and what have you?
Yes,
It, okay. Is there anything you want to share about that to listeners?
absolutely. Yes. I want everybody, especially women who have had so much input, so much overflow of information.
Mhm.
Um, simplify, simplify. Eat whole foods.
Mhm.
That's the big one. So don't buy anything that has like more than 3 or 5 ingredients. Try to cook from scratch. Eat protein at every meal. Eat protein and vegetables, and you're going to be fine. Just
Okay.
because you're over 40 or it's after 6 p.m. doesn't mean that you can't eat any carbs. Just simplify. Eat good food, like, eat chicken and fish, or if you don't want to eat animals, eat tofu as a protein source. Add some vegetables to keep your body healthy, and you'll be fine. You don't need anything more complicated.
Well, I've got to ask my last question of you, Kim. You've been talking about women now. Can men fit into this category you're talking about?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, the basic, the biological functions of muscle and strength are
Mhm.
exactly the same for
Okay.
men and women. I just have a better understanding of the social,
I, understand.
familiar, and
I,
environmental context of women. So I think I'm particularly well placed to help them.
I,
Um,
I understand. I do understand exactly where
what
you're
what I
coming
said about muscle building and eating, that's the
from.
same for
So,
everybody.
same for everybody. I understand. Kim, you've been awesome. And thank you so very much for sharing with listeners of this podcast today. I know they have truly enjoyed what you've said to us. And again, thank you so very
Thank
much.
thank you for having me. I enjoyed this too.
And there you have it. Kim sharing with us today. And until next time, peace and blessings be with each of you.